Okay, so the meeting is now live and you may begin.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's 6 minutes after 2 on April 7th, and we'd like to welcome you to the first Cultural Center Feasibility Task Force meeting of 2021. I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance today. This is an electronic participation meeting, so our committee members are participating electronically as well as those watching online on our YouTube live stream. My name is Donna Goodwin. I'm Economic Development Officer, Arts and Culture, and I'm the recording secretary for this task force. According to the task force terms of reference, at the first meeting of this task force for the year, the first order of business is to appoint a chairperson to conduct today's meeting as well as conduct future meetings. The role of the chairperson includes the responsibility to chair the meeting, as well as ensuring the meeting is conducted as listed on the agenda or by resolution if it's decided to move an item on the agenda, ensuring meetings are conducted to the city's procedural law. We also do a calling for pecuniary interest when listed on the agenda, noting that it's up to the committee member to determine whether or not they have a pecuniary interest, and ensuring all members of the committee, visiting staff, and members of the public are treated with respect. Once the chairperson has been appointed, I will also conduct the appointment of the vice chair of the committee, who will serve as the chairperson in absence of that chair. I will now call upon the members of the committee 3 times for nominations for committee chair. So firstly, I call upon the members of the committee to put forward a nomination for the position of chair. Diane?
Thank you, Donna, and thanks everybody for being on the call. It's quite an auspicious day for us. I would like to nominate Susan Taylor as the chair of the committee, the task force.
Thank you.
Okay. Any
I
other
would second that
nominations?
nomination. I would second it.
Okay. Okay. I will call upon the members of the committee for a second time for nominations of position of chair. I will call upon the members of the committee a third time and final time for the position of chair. Seeing no other hands raised, Susan Taylor, as you are the only member nominated, do you consent to stand as position of chair?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Seriously, thank you.
Okay, so I declare the appointment of Susan Taylor by acclamation as chair of the Cultural Center Feasibility Task Force. And then normally, typically, we would, in an in-person meeting, it would ask you to walk through the appointment of vice chair, but because we cannot get the script to you in time, for your consent, I will walk through the process of the appointment of vice chair as well. So I'll call upon the members of the committee to put forward a nomination of the task force for the position of vice chair. Are there any nominations? Susan?
Donna, I'd like to nominate Bev Jeeves.
Okay. Seconder, is there a
I
seconder?
will second that as well.
Okay, Patrick, thank you.
I'm
Okay,
not-
I will now call upon the members a second time for the position of vice chair.
Donna, I'm not sure Bev can hear us.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I can. Yes, yes.
okay. We
Yeah,
have 2 of you, Bev.
Okay.
All right. So I will call upon the members of the task force for a third and final time for the position of vice chair. Okay, since there was only one name nominated, do you, Beverly Jeeves, consent to have your name stand as vice chair? Bev?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do accept the nomination. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I now declare that Beverly Jeeves by acclamation is the vice chair of the Cultural Center Feasibility Task Force. And the vice chair will resume or assume the role of chair in the absence of the chair.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So as chair, Susan, we would need an adoption of the agenda for today's meeting.
Well, I'd like to adopt the agenda for today's meeting.
Okay, so we'll move a motion to adopt today's agenda as presented. Do we have a seconder? Thank you.
Diane, I'll second. Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then are there any declaration of pecuniary interest?
I'm not so sure that it's a pecuniary interest, but I am connected to the family who contributed toward the funding of this feasibility study.
Okay, City Clerk Kathy Ritchie, would you be able to comment on that for us, please?
You're wanting me to comment?
So can I have the question again?
Oh, yes. The question is Pat Murphy, who's been appointed onto the task force, he is wondering if he may have a pecuniary interest because he is connected with the family that donated the community portion of the money to do this feasibility study.
Okay, so first of all, the staff are not in a position to rule whether a member has a conflict of interest or not. However, the task force does only make recommendations to council, and council makes a final decision. So I would speak to a solicitor to see whether you actually had a conflict, or I guess to save you some money, I would say that because you're a task force and that you don't have a direct gain, that it's probable doubt that you would have a direct conflict of interest. But as I say, staff is not in the position to give that kind of guidance.
Thank you. I'll proceed as if there isn't a conflict, but I'm here in the interest of the task force.
Okay. Thanks, Pat. So we have no adoption of the minutes from a previous meeting, nor deputations or correspondence at this time. So we'll move to section 7 on the agenda with new business. And 7.1 is to review the terms of reference for the Cultural Center Feasibility Task Force. And so it was circulated with the agenda. So today we were hoping to review the terms of reference just to familiarize ourselves again, because it has been about 18 months since we started the process. And then also hoping that through the chair, there will be a recommendation to extend the terms of reference, given the time now that we're starting here in April. So the members shall abide by the rules outlined within the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act and shall disclose any pecuniary interest to the secretary and absent him or herself from meetings for the duration of the discussion and voting. Task force will abide by any terms and conditions which may be set out by the City Council, CAO, City Clerk, City Solicitor, Auditor, and/or insurer for any relating to the task force business, in keeping with the task force terms of reference and its established policies. So the activities for the task force are We have representatives up to 3 from the task force, inclusive of chair and vice chair, to sit on the hiring committee with staff to select the qualified consultant, provide information, contact suggestions, and ensure a fulsome stakeholder and public consultation to gather information related to the task as outlined in the RFP. Provide written feedback to the recommendations relating to the tasks and outlined in the RFP. Make recommendations to council and staff on the study recommendations received from the consultants at the end of the project, and to make recommendations to council and staff on strategy, policy, and various issues to achieve council's strategic priorities relating to the task force established scope of work as defined in the terms of reference. Composition, as we know, the task force is comprised of a maximum of 7 members, consisting of up to 5 members of the public. We have 1 representative from the Kawartha Lakes Arts Council, 1 representative from the Culture and Heritage Network, 1 representative from the creative economy, 2 representatives of the public at large, 2 council representatives who will have full authority to debate and vote. And the task force shall consist of a minimum of 5 members. It'll be appointed by council in accordance with established policy. All appointing voter members may be represented at meetings by designated alternatives if applicable. A designated alternative must be formally designated by an appointed member in writing to the task force to represent them. Designated alternatives must be approved by the task force and are subject to all requirements and criteria set out in the terms of reference. For appointment of officers, the task force shall at its first meeting elect its chair and vice chair. And it acknowledges there's no per diems for any task force positions, is acknowledged that none of the above positions shall be paid for their services, and all task force members are considered volunteer positions. The term of the appointment, task force members shall be appointed for a term ending upon final recommendation to council and staff prior to December 31st, 2020. And this is why we'll, at the end of the review, put forward a recommendation. Any extension to this term shall be recommended to council via the liaison department through report to council prior to the expiration date, with a final decision of that being of council. The Development Services Department will provide support in the forms of advice, day-to-day liaison with city, and information sharing. A member of the staff shall be designated as recording secretary by the liaison department, and the recording secretary shall prepare and publish agendas and attend all formal business task force meetings for the purpose of taking minutes, prepare and publish minutes in an accessible format, and the recording secretary shall ensure that the term of reference for the task force has been provided to the city clerk's office and posted on the city website. The meetings will be set and held on a set day and time as determined by the task force or the call of the chair. Location in a non-COVID world is usually to be held in an accessible city facility. At the time that we're in now, they're held electronically until otherwise noted. For the meetings, the task force shall hold a minimum of 3 meetings during their term. The chair, through the liaison department, shall cause notice of the meetings, including the agenda for the meetings, and provide to members of the task force and posted to the city website a minimum of 3 business days prior to the date of each meeting. Quorum for meetings shall consist of a majority of the members of the task force, and no meeting shall proceed without quorum. At the first meeting of the task force, an orientation session shall be held for members. And we have an electronic resource that I'll be sending out at the end of the meeting for people to review, and you certainly can ask any questions at that time. Working meetings throughout the term of advance to the efforts of the workshop plan shall be held at the call of the chair, with the chair providing notice of working meetings to members of the task force a minimum of 3 business days prior to the date of each meeting through the recording secretary. No formal minutes are required to be taken at working meetings. However, notes shall be taken. And for procedures for formal business meetings of the task force shall be governed by the city's procedural bylaw and legislation. where both are silent by Robert's Rules of Order. And then the procedural participation of electronic city councils, boards, and committees may participate in open and closed sessions by electronic participation and be counted for purposes of establishing quorum. In case of an interruption in the communication link to the members electronically, the meeting will recess maximum of 15 minutes until it's determined whether or not the link can be reestablished. If communications are not reestablished, the meeting will resume without the electronic participants. Member participating by electronic means shall inform the chair about the intentions to leave the meeting either on a temporary or permanent basis. A member participating by electronic means will be deemed to have left the meeting when they are no longer electronically connected. A member loses electronic connection temporarily to the meeting, that member shall be treated as if they have left the physical room of the traditional meeting, and the time will be noted by the city clerk or recording secretary. All votes shall be shown by hands or by verbal consent of yes or no. That's subject to direction from the head of council or chair to the city clerk or recording secretary. The meeting will proceed without deputations. Written correspondence received from the public may be circulated to council members prior to the start of the meeting electronically. For public notice purposes, the location of the meeting published on the agenda shall be a physical location of the city clerk or recording secretary during the meeting. If the location of the city clerk cannot be open to the public, the city clerk shall provide notice in electronic location of where the meeting can be viewed. Members shall be provided instructions by the city clerk, recording secretary, CAO, or their delegate of how to access the meeting by means of electronic participation. A recording of the open session of the meeting shall be preserved for a period of time determined by the records retention bylaw for public record. All video meetings will be available on live streaming or other video technology. The task force shall not be permitted to hold closed meetings. For agendas and minutes, a copy of the agenda shall be provided to the city clerk's office at the same time it's provided to the task force. The city clerk's office will distribute the agenda to council members as per established procedures. Minutes of all formal business meetings and notes from working meetings of the task force shall be forwarded to the liaison department, including city clerk's office, and no later than 2 weeks after the meeting. Action items requested of staff or the council will be brought to the attention of the Development Services Department at that time. The city clerk's office will electronically circulate the format business meeting minutes to all members of council for their information. City clerk's office will maintain a set of printed minutes on file for public review, and the recording secretary shall ensure that all task force agendas and minutes are posted to the city website at the same time as they are circulated to the clerk's office. For reports, the task force recommendations shall be brought forward to council via the liaison department through report to council. It'll be the responsibility of the task force chair to provide a memo to the liaison department identifying the task force recommendations for final preparation of the report. For purchasing policy, up to 3 members of this task force, inclusive of the chair and vice chair, could participate in the request for proposal hiring committee following the city's purchasing policy. We have general liability policy, errors and omissions liability extends to this task force and its members. The applicable insurance policies extend to task force members while in performance of his or her duties and to those activities authorized by the City of Kawartha Lakes and Council. Members must adhere to the policies and procedures of the City of Kawartha Lakes Council, including the terms of reference. The task force must provide via the liaison department an annual update listing of all members, including members' positions, to the City of Kawartha Lakes to ensure the applicable insurance coverage remains in force. Task force members are not entitled to any benefits normally provided by the corporation of the City of Kawartha Lakes, including those provided for Workplace Safety Insurance Board and other responsible for own medical, disability, and health insurance coverage. An expulsion of a member. Any member of the task force who misses 3 consecutive formal business meetings without being excused by the task force may be removed from the task force in accordance with adopted policy. Any member of the task force may be removed from the task force at the discretion of council for reasons including, but not limited to, the member being in contravenance of the Municipal Act, the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, the Provincial Offences Act, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, or the Code of Conduct for task force members, disrupting the work of the task force or other legal issues. The process of expulsion of a task force member is outlined in the city's council committee, board, and task force policy. For terms of reference, the recording secretary shall ensure that a current terms of reference for the task force has been provided to the city clerk's office and is posted on the city website. Any responsibilities not clearly identified within these terms of reference shall be the responsibility of the city of Kawartha Lakes, and council at the discretion can change the terms of reference for this task force at any time. Any changes proposed to these terms of reference by the task force shall be recommended to council via the liaison department through report to council. At the discretion of council, the task force may be dissolved by resolution of council. Okay. Does anyone have any questions with that? All right. So the recommendation that's required at this time is to change the date of the sunset for the task force and to extend it so that it matches the budget cycle that has been approved, which was June 30th, 2022. So I guess it would be Susan as chair. If you can make that recommendation for the terms of reference for the date to be extended. As of right now, it's still 2020, so it would be to June 30th, 2022.
Okay. Motion that the task force members will be appointed for a term ending upon final recommendation to council and staff prior to June 30th, 2022. Will that work?
I think that works.
So we would now look for somebody to second that.
I can second that.
Thanks.
Okay, Bev.
Donna, I just want to mention with procedures. So the chair would put the motion forward. You would get another member of the committee to move that motion and then another person to second.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's fine. Does someone want to move Susan's motion? Diane? All right, thank you.
Well, Diane's speaking. Did you say something, Diane?
Sorry,
She just
I'm
put
just getting my mute off, just saying that I would make the motion that Susan recommended to extend the task force timing to June 30th, 2022. And then I guess Bev has seconded that, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any other comments about the terms of reference? Okay, perfect. So the next agenda item is an overview of the Cultural Center Feasibility Studies request for proposal. And we have Marielle, I think she's here.
Yes, sorry, I'm on the phone as
Okay.
well. My mic on my laptop isn't working, so I don't know if I'm too loud now. But I called in so
No,
it'd be
you're good.
easier for you to, pardon me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, so my name is Marielle Van Engelen. I'm the buyer in the procurement division, and economic development is my portfolio. Yeah, I'll start with what the difference is. Some of you have probably heard what a request for tender or request for quotation is, and the process that we're going to be doing for the cultural center is going, feasibility task is going to be a request for proposal. So the main difference is for an RFQ or tender is that we know how many widgets we want, and you just have to give us a price. With an RFP, we know the end result, where we want to get, we just don't know all the steps. And that's why we're going out to procurement, and we're looking for somebody that has the expertise and that can walk us through the steps to get to the end result. Does anybody have any questions?
No, you look good.
Okay. The municipality is governed for procurement purposes. There are two free trade agreements, the European free trade agreement and the Canadian free trade agreement. And we also have a city purchasing policy and a management directive. And an open competition where it's publicly advertised for goods or services over 50,000, which this procurement will be. So it will be posted on bids and tenders. It's a public platform that a lot of municipalities use. People that are subscribed to bids and tenders will be notified that this is out there. We can invite different vendors to let them know through bids and tenders that it's been posted, and they can either register with bids and tenders to take the document, or they can view it without paying us any fee whatsoever. So there is a need for confidentiality, that we don't discuss the RFP with potential vendors from our standpoint, from our knowledge. You can, if you know somebody that that can provide the service for us, you can direct them to bids and tenders, and they can check it out. You cannot discuss with them anything else. And as already mentioned, you'll have the you have to follow the terms of the confidentiality for the city, and we want it so that the proponent doesn't have an unfair advantage or engages in contact directly or indirectly that might give them an unfair advantage to the procurement process, that they don't have any inside knowledge.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, somebody's calling in on my phone and I don't want to lose you guys. So once there, due to the free trade agreements, there's a time period that the request for proposal can be posted. And usually it's 30 days, and there's a calculation to how we get to 30 days. And from the 30, a week prior to the closing date, all our closings are on Thursday at 11. The Tuesday but prior, we have the last day for questions. Questions are submitted by potential vendors through bids and tenders and are fielded by myself. The closing, we have just gone to electronic bidding. So it closes electronically. My supervisor still opens it. I'm not sure. We actually haven't had an electronic opening. We've just gone through this process. The pandemic forced us to speed up our changing to e-bidding, and unfortunately we had to, it's tied to our purchasing policy, so we had to get that changed through council first, so we're a little bit delayed in getting that. So this will be the first RFP that I have done that will be through closing electronically. They will still submit everything that we have asked for. There's certain criteria that we're looking for, if they have past experience, what other projects they have worked on. It's all decided what's in the RFP process. Do you want details on that, or is that just enough? No? Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, so.
Marielle?
Yes?
Diane has a question.
Okay.
Hi there. Thank you for that overview. maybe it's just because it's been 18 months since we had the task or the working group, but is there a draft of the RFP?
There's a working copy, but I haven't, it's not fine. The draft isn't even finished yet. There's other departments are involved looking at it. And that, I believe, I'm not sure the steps after that. It hasn't come back to me for our final review of it to make sure that that we're following the procurement process.
So is there any role of the task force members to review it before it's posted?
Donna, do you want to answer that?
Sure. Yeah. So if you on the agenda, Diane, 7.3, there's actually an appointment for a cultural center for a task force member to be appointed as a representative. And then they would work with staff and the procurement department to finalize the RFP and then have it issued.
So it doesn't come back to all the members of the committee. You just have one person that's the rep for finalizing it?
Right. Yeah. In part because of the confidentiality of the RFP process, it depending on the open discussion forum, it might give somebody an unfair advantage if they were to know of the details before it was issued to everyone electronically all at the same time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'd forgotten that this is, of course, streamed and available to the public. And yes, it is important to protect the confidentiality.
Diane, do you have time to take on that role for the task force? 7.3.
We're jumping down to 7.3.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, maybe, sorry, Diane and Pat, if we can just sort of see if Marielle has any final remarks, and then we can close her presentation, and then Susan, as chair, she can do a call for a motion for a recommendation, if that sounds good.
Sure.
Okay, Marielle, was that, thank you so much for sharing. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
I did want to tell you that there is a difference when it comes to award process for a request for proposal versus a request for quotation. Quotations are based on lowest price. RFPs are based on highest score. And the pricing is also scored. It's done by a calculation specifically for this one. It's the lowest price divided by the proponent's price times the weight. That equals the score for that vendor. So it may not necessarily be the lowest price that wins, because they might have higher score in other areas of the RFP. But it may be that their pricing is lowest, so it get a higher score, and all the other criteria get a higher score as well. I just wanted to reiterate and through currently with the city's policy, when we award, we don't publicize the price. That hasn't changed yet, so the price won't be made public. And after an award is made, any vendors that were not successful, they have a time limit that they can get in touch with myself, and they can ask for to review their submission and where they were weak or high, or just do an evaluation of their submission, and they have the opportunity to contact us for that. Any questions?
Can you say the formula again?
It's the lowest price divided by the proponent's price, the current one that we're looking at,
Okay.
times the weight, so that's the score. So if it's out of 30 points, and that equals the proponent's points. So if the lowest price was $10 and the proponent's price was $20, and you divide the lowest by the proponents, and then you times it by, say if it was 30 points, and that's how the points are determined.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, so at any time you have
It
any
doesn't-
questions? Sorry?
Sorry, yeah, it doesn't, no one else has any questions.
Okay, and if at any time, if anybody has any questions, Donna, feel free to contact me, okay?
Okay, yeah,
All right.
thanks,
Thank you very
Marianne, we
much,
appreciate
everybody.
it. Okay, bye. Okay. So everyone feels comfortable with what we're doing right now? As I reviewed in the terms of reference, it's up to 3 people. For the agenda, we have an appointment of 1. Task force members are fine with having 1 person sit on the RFP panel for the process.
Yes.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. All right. So Susan, did you want to do a call for, I guess from the Zoom for the appointment of one of our task force members?
Yes, I'd like to do a call for nominations for representative for the request for proposals. Any nominations?
Yes, I'd like to recommend Diane, mainly because of her depth of experience in this field.
Okay, seconder,
I'll second that.
Kathleen. Okay,
Mhm.
Councillor Seymour Fagan. Any other nominations? Okay, Diane, do you accept the nomination?
Well, thank you for putting my name forward, Pat. I'm not clear on what the role of the rep is. I heard the one piece that the final RFP that this person would act on behalf or take a recommendation forward from the committee to work with staff to finalize it. But what is the other role? Anytime I've done this kind of work, either as the consultant or as the client, like at Trent University, we didn't have a volunteer. It was all done by staff. So I'm not sure of the delineation between what the role of this person would be and the rest of the staff team. Do you have any insight on that?
From how it's been discussed, because the task force is a conglomerate of municipal and community, for one, it felt that it was appropriate to have a community rep as part of the RFP process. It's also that the RFP, much of it was developed from the work out of the working group that
Right.
has now been morphed into this task force. And so the rep would sort of shuffle, like try to, or work to get it finalized. Then procurement takes over and they of course do their, they post it, they handle all the questions, they, do the timelines, all of that kind of thing. But then the small panel or working group comes back and they actually review the bids that were submitted. They some of the scoring, like financial, will happen now electronically through this bidding process. So some of it spits out a result, but the other more qualitative elements will need to be scored, which would be part of the responsibility of the task force rep. And also top 3 scores can also be interviewed. There could be a call for an interview for the top 3 scores. So then we actually interview the consultant as well and then score that. And then all of those scores are put together. And then the highest score, of course, is awarded the tender. So that would be the process that the rep would go through. And then from there, then it comes back to the task force to share the firm that's been awarded, any information that we want to share that way. And then that recommendation goes to council.
So,
that would be-
so for example, if there were questions coming from potential bidders that are being fielded through Marielle, and she might want insight or some feedback from the task force, can that come back through Susan as the chair of the task force, or is everything in that process, which is the bulk of the work, like to get to the point of the awarding, is it only coming through the rep?
Rebecca, you have your mute on. I think you.
Oh, I did. Diane, it will come through Marielle to staff and to that rep. So staff will take the majority of the legwork for the review process.
And so if we were interviewing, say, the top 3 firms that were, or individuals who were candidates, would that be a shared responsibility between the rep and the staff, or would it all go to staff? I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of timing and workload.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah.
The intent at this point being set up like this is that this gives the opportunity for that community member that's from the task force to join staff going through that process. Typically, you're right, it would entirely be staff. This is a distinct process specific to this project.
Right.
So it would be going through, yes, the review of the document, the review of the bids, if required, the interview process, until we get to the end of that confidential closed process.
Right. Okay, well, that's helpful. Thank you. It's a new model for me to work in also, and I just wanted to clarify that. Pat's question is, do I have time for this? And I thought, well, time for what? What's it involve? So thank you for that. And I think this is the best way for me to participate in the task force through being that rep. So if everybody's in agreement, I would accept it.
Okay. Patrick, yes, you got your hand up? Yeah.
Yes, so we've gone through all of the confidentiality. So if Diane is our representative and she's the only one of the 7 members of the task force that gets to read the RFP before it is put out to the public, does that mean Diane is not allowed to discuss it with any of the rest of us?
Yes.
It does. So I guess my concern at this point is we've come all this way to get to where we are today, and we're putting a lot of trust in the municipal staff to actually be putting words to paper representing all of the work that have got us to where we are. That's a big leap of faith for some of us.
Well,
I guess I'm thinking we're putting our trust in Diane's expertise now to read this and allow it to be put out to the public on behalf of the rest of the committee. But does Diane actually have any capability of changing wording, or is it just a done deal and she gets to read it?
Well, the RFP is sectioned into, I think it has 5 sections. And some of it is, dealing with workplace health and safety, insurance, making sure that force majeure, like all those things, which is what we would consider sort of boilerplate. And then there is a section that I think it's Appendix D, and it is where the background, the research that's been done, the ability to sort of synthesize what we're looking for, how we want them to respond, and that's the part that's our creative process. And a lot of the draft, that as it sits in draft form now, a lot of it is based on all of the information that was collected through the working group, that draft updates that are actual public knowledge now, that have gone through the working groups, that have gone through the other stakeholders, all pre-pandemic. So there certainly is a way within that section. That's the section that staff is able to create and therefore able to change. And so I guess yes, for that section. For the other sections, that's completely based on the procurement policy and on the Municipal Act legislation and on different ways that we can communicate. And those are sort of standard municipal responsibilities and requirements.
And Donna, I'd just like to speak further. I can appreciate Pat's concern in referring to leap of faith, but we've been at this since 2015. And I think in a relatively short period of time, we've built a really good bridge within our municipality. And it's been a leap of faith since day one, and we have not been let down on any level. So if it's a matter of trust, I'm willing to trust in the process, because this is significant. That's all.
Okay. So Diane, circling back, because you accepted, and then Pat asked his question, which was really great.
Excuse me,
I just want to circle back.
Uh-oh. What did you say, Donna?
I don't know.
She's circled. She's circling.
Okay.
She's
I'm
physically
back.
circling. There she
I'm
is.
back. Sorry. There's somebody pounding at my door rather furiously, but they've left. So.
Oh, all right. Okay. No, it's good. So you've accepted the rep nomination, and we can have that put in the minutes, and then of course we will provide extra detail for you, Diane, on next steps.
Okay. Well, I know we can't chart everything out at this meeting, but I do agree with Susan that the engagement and partnership with municipality is a very strong bridge between the volunteer leadership that's brought this to this point and the volunteer donors. And I'm really thrilled that that Tracy and Kathleen are continuing as our counselors because of all the earlier work we did in the working group. So I think we're ready to go.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So the next point on the agenda is the date for the next meeting, which
Donna?
Yeah.
We didn't have a seconder, did we, for the motion to make Diane our representative?
Kathleen Seymour Fagan did.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So the next meeting, as of the terms of reference, is the call of the chair, because in part it is tied into the RFP and the successful sort of conclusion of that process. So we are at point 9, which is our adjournment. So chair, through you, if you can call a motion to adjourn, if there aren't any other questions.
If there's no further questions, I don't see any. No hands are up. So I'd like somebody's. I'd like to put forward a motion for adjournment.
Oh, Councillor Seymour Fagan. Okay, seconder.
I'd like to just personally thank everybody for all the hard work that it's taken to get to this point. This is a very exciting moment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Pat, for mentioning that. I find it actually a little emotional. So thank you all.
Okay, we need, sorry, just for terms, we just need a seconder to adjourn.
Oh, Diane did.
Diane? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very, very much. Yeah.
Take care.
Yay.